Actually, I had somebody tell me that just the other day. Hey, thank you so much. I have some other plans for you, but we're going to just take a few months off and we'll come back in the summer. And, I have these plans to work with you that way.
Yeah.
So we don't like to lock our clients into anything. So it's totally what they decide.
Well, hello and welcome to the J. Sterling Hughes Show, where we share the secrets and strategies of how we're building a rapidly growing family law practice. Over the past 9 years, we have grown from 0 attorneys to 25, doing over 15 million in revenue. And my purpose here is to document what's working and what's not working with hopes that you can take that and recontextualize that for your practice. And I have a guest today on the show. I'm excited to share with you Kyle Harbaugh. Whenever I'm out hunting for content for my podcast, I am looking for things that I think can add value to small family law firms in particular that are rising up. And because we were there once, and I remember those days very vividly. And one of the real challenge was understanding how a practice fits in a business framework. And Kyle is an expert on that. He's the founder and CEO of Chief Go Officers. He has a really, really comprehensive set of tools that he uses to help firms go from the stage they're in when you start engaging with him and going through all the stages of growth. Most of which, as I look at his material and his tools, I can see our path through those stages too. So it's really, really cool stuff. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. I first became aware of you, Kyle, found you on LinkedIn, started following you and reading your content and checking out your site and all that sort of stuff. So I'm excited to have you here today. And why don't we start with the Kyle story? What's the Kyle story?
Sure. Well, first off, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Kyle Harbaugh. I'm the founder of Chief Go Officers. We're a consultancy that centers around growth and operations. We support small law firms, mid-sized law firms. We help them develop plans, systems, and processes that promote growth. And so my story is a little bit odd. I kind of fell into the whole, legal industry. I was a philosophy major. That was what I liked. I liked thinking, problem solving, analyzing ideas. And then I started getting towards the end of my, career in college, and I'm going like, man, what the heck am I going to do with this? My options were go work for the FBI or the CIA, or go into a religious institution, or go be a professor or a teacher. And I'm going, none of those really excite me. So
I was a history major, so I feel your pain. There was nothing for me to do whenever I was graduating. So I just chose law school for much the same reasons.
Yeah, it was great for personal growth, but I'm going, how do I apply this? Well, then one of my professors, he goes, there's a lot of people who go into law school after philosophy, and they do really well because we've trained you how to dissect a problem and think creatively. And so maybe you want to look into that. I looked into it, and there was a paralegal program. I was able to transfer most of my work into the paralegal program, and I ended up getting another bachelor's degree in 1 extra year. So I did 5 years of school. I got a degree in philosophy and a degree in paralegal studies. Mm-hmm. And so then I started working as a paralegal. And so I've worked as a paralegal for close to 12 years. I've did quite a few other kind of paralegal adjacent type work. I did pre-settlement negotiation for a while, office management, investigations. Also have a background in sales and collections. I bring kind of an eclectic set of skills. And for a long time, I believed, I still believe this, it's good to take notes. It's far cheaper to learn from other people's mistakes than make them yourself.
For sure.
And so I've always kind of just had in the back of my head, oh, that worked. That was cool. Or that did not work. That was a big failure. We shouldn't have done that. So I've always kind of been taking notes, and I've noticed that in the legal field, no matter where I went, mistakes were being made. It didn't matter if it was a big firm, a little firm, if it was a solo practice, that was just getting started, or it was a long established, legal department. It didn't matter where I went. The same problems just kept coming up. And really it boiled down to 3 things. Attorneys were burning out. They were working way too much, or they were getting close to burning out. Employee turnover was high. If employees weren't leaving, they were unhappy, and they were unengaged. Overall, the firm just wasn't firing on all cylinders. And the third one was because attorneys are so overly busy, they are not really servicing the client very well. A lot of that, one of the most common complaints is client communication.
So as you were going through all of these experiences and these different firms that you worked at in operations, legal operations, when was the impetus or the vision starting to take root on helping other firms do what you had seen done well in some cases and poorly in other cases and starting your business?
Yeah. So one day I was talking about this with my business partner, Sam Robinson, and I'm just going like, man, no matter where I go, it seems like the same mistakes are happening over and over again. Sometimes people take my advice and sometimes they don't. It just hurts to watch people fail and struggle. And I go, there's got to be a better way. And he goes, I see the same thing in my industry. He services financial advisors. And so we realized there was a high crossover, about 80% crossover. And so we decided to work for forces of good within our respective industries to transform those into something that's much more healthy and sustainable.
Yeah, interesting. So that's why I was intrigued. But when we were talking in the green room prior to going on the podcast, is I have just a heart desire to want to help small firms that are where they're at get to the next level of where they're trying to go. So, and I see so many small firms just have great practitioners in many cases, do really good service for their client, but they really get stuck there and they never were able to really grow and scale beyond that because they don't have the business acumen or they don't have the time to put into their business. And so a resource like what you offer to come in and alongside these firms and help them kind of build to that next level of their growth is really cool. So can you walk me through, if you can, Kyle? Mm-hmm. Let's pretend I'm a small law firm owner, 3 attorneys, let's say.
Okay.
And we've been here for a while and we want to get to the next level where we double our growth over maybe a 2-year span. How do you support firms like that? Starting first with that initial engagement, what that feels like and looks like on through the time that they would be working with you.
Okay. So if you came to me and you said, just like you laid out, first we would just have a conversation. My consultations are completely free. I just like to find out what's going on and if I can help, if it would be a good fit. If it's not a good fit, I'll tell you. I don't want to sell anybody. I don't want to make transactions. I want to make relationships. Right. I want to be, your partner in growth.
What does a good look like?
Like, honestly, what you just described, a firm owner with 3 other attorneys who's established, but they want to get to the next level is outstanding because they have some money to play with. They've been around. They know what works somewhat. I'm not starting from the beginning, although I'm more than happy to do that. And I have done that with other clients. But somebody who has at least some systems and processes, that's great because then the first step is really understand if it's a good fit. If it is a good fit, to start with is called a business health analysis. And this is a comprehensive report that we've developed. It uses AI software that we've developed in-house. Nobody else in the industry has anything like this. And, working with a consultant is expensive and it's time consuming, but we are the fastest because this report does all the heavy lifting for us.
When you say the fastest to what? Tell me more about that.
So how it works is there's a detailed questionnaire that they fill out. You can get that questionnaire done in about an hour or 2, depending on, how much time you want to put into it.
Mm-hmm. What kind of questions would be in here in the questionnaire?
All sorts of questions. So we analyze 12 key areas of business. Okay. So we look at things like profitability, technology, scalability, your product, your services, your clientele, networking, all sorts of different things. Mm-hmm. So we look at it in a very comprehensive manner so that we can really understand what's going on. Because a lot of times people come to me and they say, hey, I'm having this issue. I'm having a people issue. It seems like people, they worked with me great for a while and then all of a sudden, they're not putting out such great work product. And I want you to do training. And I'll say, well, let's do this business health analysis first because what you want me to treat might just be a symptom of a deeper problem. So this really gets to the root issues. Mm-hmm. And so it looks at 12 key areas of business. It has over 692 data points that it takes into consideration, and it really breaks down in a detailed manner what's happening, what's going well, where are the opportunities for growth, and then it lays out a detailed action plan. The action plan usually spans about 6 to 18 months.
Wow.
And it lays out exactly what needs to happen in what order. And then it tells them the services that we offer that can fit into that action plan. So if they want to work with us, great. They have the options, in front of them in that report. If they don't want to work with us, that's fine, because I know it's not always the right time. And if they want to do it themselves, I applaud them for wanting to work on that themselves. I just want attorneys to, work on their business and make it better so that everybody's happier.
So after going through this initial discovery process with you, the firm owner essentially gets, if I'm understanding this correctly, is after all of that, they get a prioritized playbook?
Yeah. It's a 20-page report, at least 20 pages. I've seen as large as 50 pages, depending on the detail of their issues and several other factors, but it gives them a detailed action plan. And so
generally speaking, just we can put some context around this. What are some of the typical issues you see for these small firms they need to start? What's a common area or areas where they start at, then start working through those and go to the next problem? I'm just trying to get an example of what you might mean.
Yeah. So I would say one of them is standard operating procedures. So they're not getting interrupted. There's a standard process to do anything, everything, and employees can refer back to it so that they're not getting interrupted and they can focus more on actually servicing their clients.
Yeah.
Another, one that is common is getting better technology in place, getting like a CRM or document automation or other, systems in place to really enhance and get the most out of the employees they have.
And so the attorneys that I know, Kyle, they're so busy, man. They're working really, really hard because they're getting paid typically by the hour.
Right.
So an hour away from serving a client doesn't have an ROI, at least not immediately.
Right.
So I can imagine that you would get a lot of pushback on having to start doing these things whenever they have a full load already. So how do you deal with that? How do you support those attorneys?
Yeah. So like I said before, working with consultants is expensive and time consuming. Now, like I said, but we're the fastest in terms of getting this assessment done. And then once we have your mission and vision, I'm more than happy to execute on your plan. So I work in a fractional capacity to help people on an ongoing basis, build these systems and processes out, follow up, because a lot of it, is follow up. Then if people want to work in more of a, project-based format, I can just come in, do the work, and be done.
So you could do their standard operating procedures, for example.
Yes, I write those.
Yeah. Like, that's all I want right now, Kyle.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. Let me get that in place before we do the next thing, sort of stuff.
Yeah. And those need to be updated from time to time. Actually, I had somebody tell me that just the other day. Hey, thank you so much. I have some other plans for you, but we're going to just take a few months off and we'll come back in the summer. And, I have these plans to work with you that way.
Yeah.
So we don't like to lock our clients into anything. So it's totally what they decide. If they want to work month to month, we have options to accommodate that.
You don't lock them into like year-long deals or anything.
No. I mean, we'll say this is how long the project's going to take, and this is how much we need to work on it to get it done, and so we'll work like that. Or like I said, we can work in a fractional capacity, and it's just a month-to-month relationship. They can disengage anytime. They don't have to, pay a severance package or any kind of other thing if you hired, a person in-house.
Yeah. We've worked with a fractional CFO for many years, and we just hired one full-time in December. So I love the fractional model for certain things. So you can kind of scale up and scale down with what you need based on your budget and that sort of thing. So that's cool. So when you say fractional, meaning what would that engagement look like?
10 hours a month is our smallest increment. So we just, as needed, you can engage us in 10-hour increments.
Okay. Would the role be kind of described as kind of like a operational?
Yeah, so it's fractional COO or CGO, depending on what the situation is, or a little both. I mean, it's not like, I wouldn't, it has to be defined in this rigid way for me to do the work. Like whatever needs to be done, I'm going to be doing, because we've already laid out a plan. I already know that we need to get you a hiring process down, and we need to build this, this other process. We need to train this intake team. We need to, just whatever the plan says, I generally know what to do. And after we nail down mission, vision, values, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Do you start there with mission, vision, values? Is that like your
I like to. I mean, that's something, I think that's one of the questions in the questionnaire is, do you have a mission statement? And that's something that can be come up with relatively quickly if you generally know what to do. If you want to talk through it with me, think through it, interview your employees maybe to like get some ideas of what matters to them and what excites them. That's important too. I mean, one of the things we do is employee engagement to actually make, get more out of your people.
Yeah. I mentioned time, like the attorney's availability just to start to work on their business rather than constantly in their business. What are some of the other roadblocks that you see attorneys facing from working with someone like you or you in particular?
I would just say like delegation and trust. Trust goes low when you feel uncertain. And the kind of the thing I run up against is law schools are really good at producing lawyers, but when you graduate law school, you don't necessarily know how to even practice. And that's one complaint I hear. But then you definitely haven't learned leadership and you haven't learned, business. And those are other real key things to running a law firm. And so, it's a steep learning curve. And I appreciate the show for that, trying to kind of shorten that learning curve. Working in a way where you're building these systems is time consuming, and they're like, I just want to go, and some don't want to do the work. They're like, I didn't sign up to be a business owner. I signed up to be an attorney, and I just want to do that. Right. And so they really need somebody like, me to help them, or they at some point really need to kind of put the law aside and become a CEO and go, okay, I want my impact to be bigger. I'm going to start training attorneys below me to do the work and service the clients well, and kind of step more into that CEO role.
That's very hard for most people to do, quite honestly. I see very few client attorneys that can do that without a whole lot of time and coaching to help get there. That's just not what they want typically. So I see that being a real issue.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I had somebody talk to me and he goes, I don't want to stop trying cases. Like, I want to work till I'm 80. I think I'll try cases till I'm 80. And I'm going, well, sounds like you need some help then to, you got to delegate these other responsibilities. He was dealing with a lot of HR issues. And, that's time consuming, especially when multiple people are calling you, hey, I'm sick today, or my kid's sick and I'm not going to be in, or, oh, can I work from home, or, whatever the case may be. He was getting bogged down by that a lot. And so we had to think through, like, how do we, delegate that to somebody else? And what does that look like? How do you want that to work? Because some of it is personal preference.
Yeah. One of the interesting things you and I were talking about earlier was the stages that firms go through. And you showed me a graphic that you'd put together that I thought was fascinating. So with apologies to those listening, would you mind putting that on your screen here? And let's talk through that. And I'm going to try to like give a play-by-play for those that are listening, because I thought it was brilliant. I mean, to see it visualized like that, because our firm is probably toward the higher end of that now, but I can look back at the pain and the challenges we have gone through in each of those stages.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I've got it up here.
All right. Super.
So we've got phase one here. So can maybe start there, what you're seeing with some of these solo practices starting up.
I mean, I can sum it up. You're doing everything, but your main problem is client acquisition and service. So your main problem is just doing the work, finding the clients, getting them in the door, and then servicing them. And then when you get a little bit more support, you might move into phase two, practice with support. And so your main issue here is education and process problem. So you have other people, you have to get them up to speed, you have to educate them and tell them, hey, this is how things work around here. And, this is our process, or now that I have people working and it's not just me and I know what to do because it's all in my head, now I have to document it. And I have to communicate it to other people. So they'll experience these problems. And then phase 3.
So on that, I'm just kind of narrating here on what you're talking about, but we're in phase 2 where they get a little bit of support now. And by the way, this is where I see at least half of the family law firms end up staying here in phase 2 and never even go into phase 3, at least half. That's where in phase 2 where they're working through, for the first time, a lot of times forming a mission and a vision, setting really clear goals, building some structure, and being able to get work done when they're not there with support members.
Right. And having a good job description. So they know who's doing what. And so other employees know who does what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this, to me, it kind of describes as one founder solo with maybe an associate at this point, but more often usually an assistant or paralegal, a 2-person, 3-person sort of office. And then I cut you off as you're moving up into phase 3. Now, this is a super interesting phase where you've labeled it kind of business, ensemble, and partnership, where attorneys will form a partnership and then start to scale out from there. So can you talk that through?
Yeah. So, the big one here is people. And you got to get the right people in the right seats. You really need to start delegating things because as the firm grows, it gets more complex. There's more to do. More people are moving around and they don't always communicate well with each other. So we have to just continue to build more structure and, make sure everybody's staying in their lane. And because that was one of the things I've experienced a lot is some issue pops up and everybody wants to kick the soccer ball. That doesn't work so well. So
just to give you some context on this, Kyle, we're 10 years old this year, and I would tell you that we were in phase 3 from year 2. We got to phase 3 really quickly. We were in phase 3 from year 2. I'm going to tell you probably through year 8. It took us that long. This is a really, really difficult stage to get out of because there's so many moving pieces, and building all of that structure is certainly not easy because it's not one and done. You build the structure and all of a sudden, okay, now we've got our intake process done. Well, it's done now because you're at 8 attorneys, but when you're at 16, it's a different process, or you're in 2 states or whatever. So
definitely
talk about right people, right seats. And I know that you've got a gift that you want to give our listeners that I'm excited to actually see myself, because it's something we had to work through. It was our hiring process. We call our selection process, but all of that building those systems happens more or less. The foundations happen in phase 3, right?
Yeah. So the foundation, I would say, is built earlier. It's built in the mind first, and then it's communicated through mission and vision. And then from mission and vision, all these things kind of flow. But this is when you're really starting to build out is phase 3.
What are you seeing from a revenue standpoint? And what are the typical revenue breakpoints from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4?
Yeah, it's difficult to say because profit margins and revenue is different depending on what kind of law it is. But for, family law, I think 3 to 15 million, somewhere around there, maybe. It kind of varies depending on the area of law that is, practiced, because I service more than family law. But family law is one of the areas I like to service. There's several factors, but this is really, getting the right people in the right seats, having them know what they're doing, and not only know what they're doing and having the roles designated well, but actually having something for them to grow into is a really important piece. Is as the firm grows, you want to be grooming leaders. You want to be pouring into leaders that will help you grow later on and really, help them. You want to be looking for those A players, and A players don't want a static, they don't want a static career. They want something that grows and changes. Yeah.
You're just starting to describe phase 4 there, it sounds like.
Yeah. So this is, after everything's built, it's more about rhythm and quality. Those are the problems that you're going to be solving. So it gets really more making sure everything works well. And as things grow, that it continues to work well. And you might have to go back and revise some things, an area where things are much bigger. And so you might actually have like a project management team. You are going to be, likely using the entrepreneurial operating system. You have
that are super interesting here, Kyle, as you've identified these transition phases. We actually last year shifted our number one discussion point among all of our team meetings is focused on client service. We were good at it, but we want to be next level, wow, good at it. So it's so cool to me that you've got this here as quality problems, because we shifted all of our internal communication toward let's beat this quality drum, this client service drum over and over again. But on EOS, we've been interesting. I don't know, maybe this is one we grew quickly in the beginning, but we did EOS day one before my partner and I, before we started the firm, literally in our initial talking about what we wanted on our website, we had level 10, L10 meetings starting. We were on EOS from day one. So EOS
love it.
has given us a whole, infrastructure with which to build our firm on. So
yeah. So, just because you had EOS, you still had to start down here. You just had a framework to run it through.
Yeah.
So yeah, you really kind of have to have each one of these components to get to the next level.
Yeah.
And so you could kind of skip, but you're not really going to be truly in, say, phase 3 until you have all of these really squared away.
Right. And you're pointing to, just for those that are listening, to mission, values, SMART goals, structure, system, and so forth. Well, cool. Thanks for sharing this. And
yeah, my pleasure.
You mentioned that you had a special gift. Tell us about that.
My position is a lot of people do not have a good hiring process, and that is why they are experiencing the people problems that they experience. And that's a really big one for family law, because it's high stress. It's just the nature of the business is there's this is probably one of the worst things going on in a client's life, and there's kind of a lot of hand holding. And so we call this our PGS BCD framework. And so what this stands for is personality, goals, and skills. So personality, goals, and skills, that's what the prospective employee brings to the table. This is how you would organize your scorecard. PGS, you do a 1 through 10 scale. So personality, is it a good personality fit? Do they have a personality that fits within your culture? Are they going to be able to work well with people? Are they going to be, do they have the personality to do the work? So then you can list your pros and your cons, and the pros and cons are weighted. So you might have do you have
an assessment tool that you use for any of that to help?
No, we like the scorecard, and people are more than welcome to use exactly this, or we can and we can coach them in much more detail. But framework works like this. So PGS, personality, goals, and skills are what the client bring to the table. Or excuse me, keep saying client, employee, and then the company, the firm, brings benefits, culture, development. Mm-hmm. And so how this works is you want to be evaluating on personal goals. You want to find out about them personally. What do they want out of their career? What do they, see themselves doing long term? What makes them tick? And then skills is, can you actually do the job? Do you actually have the skills to do the job? And somebody might be weak on, say, skills, but they have a really squared away personality and goals that I could work with. And so, like I said, every element gets a rating. So it's a 1 through 10 rating. How it works is you go through that, and then BCD is what the company or firm brings to the table. So that's benefits, that could be pay and insurance and things like that. But it also could even be, if it was an attorney, equity. It could be phantom equity for a non-attorney. It could be, other things like a work from home or a hybrid schedule or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Culture is, what kind of culture does the firm have? Is it attractive? Are there team building activities, or do you do these other things? Is there ongoing training, things of that nature? And then D is development, which is do you have a growth track? Because like I said before, A players, they don't want to stay in a static role for 25 years. They want to grow and they want to, learn new skills and get more authority as time goes on.
And they want to work with other A players too.
Yeah, exactly. A players want to work with A players. And so to attract them, you need to be thinking about all of these things. And so what you do is you score this and you average the scores of each one. So you average it. The goal is 7.5. If you can get to 7.5, you probably need to get them in a second interview and really consider hiring them.
Cool.
Because you likely have an A player on your hands. If it's even higher, great. Like I've interviewed some people that are 9s. So I mean, it's great when you see that. It's just like, man, everything's squared away on this person.
Feels good.
And I want to work with them.
Cool. So how would a listener get a hold of this tool, one, and how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So the tool that I just showed, the PGS BCD framework, they can make that on their own. That's easy. If they want to consult with us on a detailed level to really get their hiring process squared away, they can contact me at Chief Go Officers. My email is kyleh@chiefgoofficers.com. They can also just call me. My phone number is 224-628-9935. I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's also a really great way to get my attention.
Awesome. Very good. Kyle, this has been really informative. So thank you so much for
my pleasure.
Time out of your day and talking through the framework, talking through the stages of a firm growth. That's fascinating to me to be able to see that, and hopefully inspiring to a lot of our listeners that are smaller firms that are looking to take that next step. So as we cheer them on.
I really appreciate it because I think you and I are both aligned. We want to, see client service go really high, and how we do that is build systems and processes so attorneys can focus on the law and provide that outstanding client service. If you are creating raving fans, you don't have to spend so much on your advertising because you have people advertising for you. Right. So, that's what I'm all about is improving the life of the attorney, improving the quality of life of the, support staff, and getting a better service to the client.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure. It was great talking with you.
Yeah, likewise.